I think there are several solutions to the C-section epidemic, and I can talk about a few of them, although I've talked about many of them in terms of thinking about for women, for physicians, and at a societal level in my book, Cut It Out. So there's much more in there. But I think one thing that we really need to think through as a society is how we have a malpractice system. A system that really focuses on babies that at birth have some kind of problem and taking care of them. That's called an outcomes-based program. We don't have a program like that right now in the United States. So it's very much focused on, was there medical error or not? And did the error cause a problem? And if there's medical error, then you litigate against the person who caused the medical error. An outcomes-based program focuses on damage at birth. It's very similar to the vaccination program we have in the United States. In the 1980s, kids who had negative reactions to vaccinations, a certain percent of kids, very small, but will have a reaction to vaccination. And the parents of those kids were suing the drug companies. Well, the drug companies decided, you know, this is just too costly for us. We'll just stop making the vaccinations. So Congress stepped in and said we should have a program where any child who has a negative reaction to vaccination receives a sum of money. Right? That's an outcomes-based program. I think that for birth, we should have a similar program. Any baby who has a problem when it's born, he or she is born, I should say, should be compensated somehow with some kind of a fund. I think also that physicians and women really need to think through the technologies that are used in birth and make sure that they're actually improving outcomes. The biggest example of that would be the electronic fetal monitor, which is a strap that goes around a woman's abdomen when she's in labor, and it documents the fetal heart rate. As good as that sounds, because we all want to know if the baby is doing well during labor, I wanted to know that with my kids, we know that it has a 99.8% false positive rate. And we know that women who have continuous electronic fetal monitoring, that would be monitoring during their whole labor, have an increased risk of C-section. So we know that what women should be doing is having intermittent auscultation, which would be listening every 30 minutes during active labor, every 5 minutes during pushing, with a Doppler unit, or even that electronic fetal monitoring strap, just for a little bit to make sure the baby's okay. Women should also take childbirth education classes to learn more about labor and birth. What we know right now is that only about a third of women take childbirth classes. Most of them take them from hospitals. Hospital-based classes are known to promote women's acceptance of interventions. And so it's best to go to an independent source that's outside of the hospital. And in my book, I list some places that you could find classes like that. So some things that providers can do would be to really advocate that their hospitals review all C-sections for medical necessity. When C-sections were reviewed, this would be in the 80s and 90s, what physicians said is, you know, I really hesitated to do a C-section that might have been seen as medically unnecessary because I would have to justify it in front of all of my colleagues. Those types of C-sections aren't reviewed like that anymore. So I think bring that back. Review C-sections and ask, are they medically necessary?